I'm Janneke from Sugar Punch, and you're watching Surprise Radio.
Hello, I'm Surprise, the host of Surprise Radio, and I wanted to do something a little bit special today. Today is the beginning of International Women's Month, which is March. One of the things that I wanted to do was really just shine a spotlight on the amazing women in the music industry. Now, obviously, I'm not a woman, so I'm only so qualified to speak on this. I was raised by my mom. I was raised with a sister. I was raised to treat women with respect, and I do my best to do that. We all grow up doing things that we're possibly not proud of or things we could have handled better, but all in all, I feel like I do all that I can to do exactly that. But not only show them respect, but also honor them and cherish them and just appreciate not just women, men, you know, there's just there's so many things to enjoy about so many different people. And I don't necessarily want to just single somebody out because they're a woman or because they're a man or because of the color of their skin or their, you know, gender or who they date or who they spend their time with or anything like that. That's not really the healthiest way to see people. However, I also do think it's worth celebrating, when the time is right to celebrate. And with this being International Women's Month, I do feel like now is the time to do my best to celebrate. I also asked a few of my friends to come on and really say what it's like to be a woman in the music industry from their point of view. I reached out to several people, and not all of them were able to join me and do this, but I did get a few. I also got one person that declined, and while I'm not going to name who that was, I did want to read what they said when they declined because I felt like it was just as important as the people that did want to come on and say something. She said she really appreciates me reaching out and asking about this. She's all for people empowering women in music, but that's just not who she is. She tries to just be an artist, and she prefers it when women are just another equal part of it and not necessarily singled out. Because she feels like when we try and pull attention towards it, we are treating it like women are different. And they're not. Not really. I mean, they are and they're not. They're different in important ways, and they're equal in equally important ways. And I respect that they don't want to be separated very much. I hope that you enjoy this. I hope that you enjoy what everybody had to say. This is just a little intro. I didn't really do an intro with each of the people that I talked to, so I thought I would do my own. To me, and again, it's not necessarily important what I think. So in the progress bar below, you will find the chapters. You can skip ahead to hear what everybody else had to say. But to me, I feel like it is important to shine a spotlight and show some appreciation to the women in the industry for several reasons. One, because I do feel like a lot of them have things to deal with that a lot of men don't. I feel like a lot of them are just as talented, if not more talented, than their male counterparts. And every single instrument that's out there, be it vocals, guitar, bass, drums, horns, keyboards, all of them can be played by both men and women. All of them can be played equally well by both men and women. Now, there are some that are played better by people, and it doesn't really necessarily matter the gender. But I also think that there is definitely some things to talk about when it comes to being a woman in the music industry. I'm going to let the women that I talk to talk about those things. I was able to get in touch with Fox of Forever May Fall, Mindy of Dying Oath, Erin, and Jen of Elsie Binx, and all of them had varying things to say. I thought it was very interesting, and Yeah, so here is what they had to say, and I hope that you enjoy the video. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check the description below and find the information for Elsie Binx, Dying Oath, and Forever May Fall, the bands that participated, and check out their music because they're amazing. Check out what they had to say because they're amazing, strong, independent, fierce, and amazing people. So, yeah, happy International Women's Month, everybody.
Well, I will say, a lot of the success as a woman in the music industry really is determined by the people on your team or in your camp. So I am very fortunate to have an incredible band, with band members who not only are very empowering and are all about, like break the barriers, but they're also very aware, of my safety. They will never push me to do anything I'm uncomfortable with. They never tell me, oh, you've got to be, you've got to dress this way and you've got to do this. They're very, very much supportive of whatever I'm comfortable with and what I want to do. So first and foremost, and I feel like that goes maybe across, I mean, I would say across the entire music industry, is like your success, especially as a band, is determined by your members. But as a female, I think it's incredibly important to have supportive band members that are, always looking out for all aspects. Um, I think there's a lot of difficulty that we face as women. I think it's always been a thorn in my side that, especially as a front woman, my looks are going to be judged first and my talent second. So it doesn't matter if I am an incredible vocalist. It doesn't matter if I have a ridiculous range. If I could have all of those things, and if I weren't moderately attractive, I mean, there'd be hell to pay for it. The comments on the music videos and everything else would be absolute trash. And on the contrary, I mean, I'm not a conceited person. I feel like I'm a fortunate looker. um, I can even tell in some of the comments. Some of the comments on our music videos have absolutely nothing to do with the music. Like, oh, she's hot. Oh, you're beautiful. Like, thank you. Appreciate it. But also, I'm just here to open my mouth and make pretty noises. Like, but
Have
yeah.
you had to deal with anything? I know that you said that your band is very protective of you, and I love to hear that. But have you had to deal with um, anything uncomfortable at any point?
Um, I would say I have been, especially in the Forever May Fall era of my music career, I have been very, very fortunate to work with producers, photographers, videographers who have all had a fantastic reputation, and they've all had very professional demeanors. Um, I've not been in a position to be made uncomfortable by a professional team. I know that there are other women in the industry who cannot say the same, and that definitely bothers me. Um, but I have been very, very fortunate. Um, I've been at shows. I've been, hell, even in public just recently. It had nothing to do with music. Like, I just had a creepy dude, touch me inappropriately and say some inappropriate things. And I think, unfortunately, that just is the territory of being a woman, regardless of being a woman musician. Um, but again, my band members are incredibly protective. So if somebody, were to make me uncomfortable, all I have to do is, go stand by them and just, kind of give them a nudge, and I'm good. Um, but that also, I mean, that also goes to say too, like, I mean, we've played a show and I was changing in the bathroom, and there were two young girls that had rushed into the bathroom while I was changing in the stall. And I could tell that they were incredibly panicked. And before they were about to rush out, I mean, like, I threw my clothes on super quick, and I jumped out there and I was like, hey, like, are you guys okay? And they said that a guitar player from another band, was saying really inappropriate things to them, making them really uncomfortable. They were visibly shaken. And I was like, yo, who were they? Like, can you point them out? Like, I'll help you take care of it. And they were like, oh, it was the guy from the first band, or from the other band, or they didn't really have a name, or didn't want to point him out. Like they just really wanted to get out of there. And I was like, can I walk you out? Can I get you out of here? And like it just really, like, it perturbed me like so much. I mean, they were young. They were definitely maybe just 21, maybe younger. It wasn't an all ages show, so it's not like they were somewhere that they weren't supposed to be. Um, it made me like I felt a type of way about it for a couple of days. I came right out of the bathroom and I told my crew and my bandmates, and they started kind of looking around, and they noted somebody that was acting a little out of character, and they kind of like were lingering around at any point during those interactions. But I made it a point to tell the venue owner. I was like, they mentioned it was, this band that played at this time, and I feel a type of way about it. So if they were upset and somebody left a show that I played upset, like I don't like that. So I mean, we're very good about keeping our eyes out. And if anybody's ever at an FMF show and somebody makes you uncomfortable, like find me, my crew, my bandmates, art spouses. Like we're all on the lookout for that kind of stuff.
And so that, of course, then ended up causing whoever was playing after them to lose a couple of potential fans. So that's a problem. Not to
Yeah.
mention, women should feel safe when they go to concerts. I mean, point blank, period.
Yeah.
Everybody should feel safe when they go to a concert. So,
Yeah.
now you had mentioned that you haven't worked with anybody that made you feel uncomfortable. Do you make it a point to do your research, extra research, to make sure that who you're going to choose to work with has a good reputation?
Um, I think that's a little self-explanatory, at least on our terms. I mean, for everyone else on the other side of the music industry, you might, that's a valid question. For us, I mean, when we look to work with somebody, as well as our name being on it and our reputation, we do look at their reputation. And most of the time, anybody that we work with has recommendations from other artists. So that's kind of where we find who we work with. Of course, we have some friends in the industry that do production. The guys in Killicoy, Sam and Jordan. They are fantastic, and they are probably some of my favorite to actually just be in a studio and write some demos and stuff with, just because the atmosphere is, they're a vault. Like it's a safe space to be in there and do whatever you've got to do to get a good product. So people like that, of course, are, they're always on our list to continue working with.
All right. And was there anything else you wanted to add, or does that pretty much cover everything that you wanted to say? And before we do go, I wanted to thank you for coming on and saying what you did have to say. I feel like there's a lot of people, especially starting out, that might be a little naive or might need a little bit of guidance. And I thought that this might be a good way for people to know they're not alone, that they have support, that they have support around the world. Even if, you aren't nearby, that doesn't mean that you can't send a message or ask for advice or something like that. So thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I think it's just important to note that, especially as women, I mean, music industry is tough for everyone, especially with everything becoming digitized and, content creation being a requirement nowadays. I think it's really important, especially for, the younger girls coming up and in the industry, just be mindful of what you do once it goes on the internet. It is there forever. So I would, there's a lot of things that I look back on now. Like if I would have known then what I know now, like I never would have done. Um, but I don't know, my best advice is, be mindful of what you put out there, what you, how you portray yourself. And especially those you work with, if anybody ever tells you, like a photographer tells you that you can't bring a friend or someone else to a photo shoot, like do not shoot with that photographer. If a producer tells you that you cannot bring someone else into the room with you, like do not work with that producer. Um, it's the internet is a really scary place, and it's becoming a more important piece of the puzzle for us as musicians. So I think, I'm being honest, if I were 17 years old and just starting out, I probably would not pursue music the way I do now. So I just, maybe it's just my millennial personality and habits, but it's definitely a scary place. So protect yourself and make sure you have the right band members who are also behind you for sure.
Some of the things that like maybe are surprising but aren't surprising that I find like they're both a little bit laughable, but also kind of just like a little offensive is being a woman in specifically the rock music industry. Is there's been times where, specifically on two occasions I can think of, where like security people have questioned whether or not I'm actually in the band.
Mm.
Like, I remember one place we went to, this guy kept harassing me, and finally I was like, I am in the band. Like he was trying to collect like the door fee from me and all this stuff. And I guess he hadn't heard me say I was in the band, but I did. And then like the other one was we were getting our wristbands, and I was like, yeah, I'm in Elsie Binx. And he's like, are you in the band or are you like a merch girl or a girlfriend? And I was like, I'm in the band. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's specifically a uniquely female thing to have happen.
Speaking on that, is there any, like I said, is there any benefits or anything that you think maybe has been made easier or different, I guess I should say, because of your gender?
I do think that as much as like I may not appreciate or like the fetishization of it, I will say just the fact that I'm in a band and I'm a female, and our lead singer's female, there is another demographic that does come into play as fans just because we are female. That probably might be the only thing I would consider a benefit, even though it's not something I love about it.
Understood. So again, I, just wanted to mostly open the floor up to you, and I don't have a whole lot in the way of questions, partly because as much as I can empathize and sympathize, I am a man and I don't 100% know all of the ins and outs of the things that go into it. So, I just, part of this was to kind of give a voice to people, and also partly for the next generation coming up, maybe some advice or things like that. One person that I talked to said, they've been fortunate to work with producers and mixers. Of course, you have your own in-house producer,
Yeah.
but they've been fortunate to work with photographers and things like that, that they didn't have to worry necessarily where other people do. And their advice was to do their research, make sure that you don't put anything out there that you don't want to come back. Is there anything like that that you wanted to add?
No, I really haven't had a lot of experience in that respect. I've been actually also very fortunate because we have an in-house producer, and because of my background, like the band I'm in was the first exposure I ever had to anything other than church and school music. Um, so I have a really unique experience compared to probably most musicians that are in the rock scene. It's something I didn't join until I was like 32 years old. So I've had really good experiences in that respect because I've worked with Kevin since the beginning. He helped found the band. That's our producer and our manager. Um, yeah, like nothing as far as that goes. I haven't had any bad experiences as far as that. I will say, oh, my cat is just, I don't know if you can hear him.
Actually, we can hear the cat, and normally you can't. So that's great.
Yeah, and like here's one thing I don't know if Erin will talk about, but because she may not even know about it. But I know somebody who has a friend who keeps asking all the time, like, why doesn't Erin dress more, appealing, or she doesn't know how to appeal to men? And I just like, I'm like, she's not trying to appeal to men. Like that's one thing about being in this industry. You're going to get people who are going to expect us to look a certain way or act a certain way rather than just being ourselves. So that's not cool, but it is getting better. Oh, the whole idea of female fronted being a genre, that I know that's always a topic of conversation. And I think people are talking about that more and more, and bringing it awareness as, this isn't a genre. Being female is not a genre. Our genre is whatever style we're doing, and the fact that we're female within it. So, but I would say overall, my experiences I've been very fortunate and very blessed. As with probably any female on stage, you always get the creepers, you always get, you know, weird fans. But we also have a bunch of really good guys in the band that are very, quick to defend us and things like that. And so that's good. Oh, we had one lady come up. This I thought was kind of interesting, getting on like the female fronted aspect of it, like being a genre. Erin and I were at the merch table, and we had a woman come up to us and be like, "Oh, you guys are so great. It's so good." And she's like, "I don't even like female bands. I don't even like female singers, but I couldn't take my eyes off of you," kind of thing. And it was like kind of like a backhanded compliment. Like, why would you say that? But there is some bias there, I guess, with people. I don't understand it. I don't think I would. I don't gauge what kind of music I listen to on whatever the gender is, but there are people out there who think that way, even women.
There's definitely a lot of backhanded compliments that come with the territory. I'm sure there's definitely a
Mhm.
lot of rivalry and things that a lot of us don't understand. So I'm glad to hear, people be able to talk about it and come together and
Yeah.
really try to rise above it.
Yeah. And also too, that you're always going to I find it a little less now. I find this interesting because I've noticed a change. So back when I first got involved with Elsie Binx, maybe like 6, 7 years ago, um, there was a lot of pitting any and bands with any females against each other. We had maybe 3 or 4 like kind of main female fronted bands in the scene, and it was like we were constantly being put against each other, when like, we were friends with Kaleido, uh Christina Chris. They've never been nothing but nice and friendly with us. They're from Detroit. And people were just trying to put competition between, and we're like, no, like, we're not going to talk bad about them. We like them, they're our friends. But I have noticed, at least in the Detroit scene, there's like this new wave of like the younger generation of like in their 20s, early to mid 20s, of bands that a ton of them are female fronted in the area, and they've kind of uh become very supportive of each other. It's almost become like a little clique, is a bad connotation to it, but it's kind of like this little club that they've kind of accepted each other into, and they're very supportive of each other, and they're always hyping each other up. So I do like seeing that there's been, support, female to female in the bands, that didn't seem to, well, maybe it was fabricated in the past by other people, but they're very much supporting each other now, which I think is great.
Well, so I started out at a really young age. I was 14, still in high school. So, some of the shows they had to sneak me in the back door just to be able to get me into play, so that was an interesting time, especially, being in the 90s and 2000s. That was a whole different time, I think, for music in general, but for women as well. There was a couple of times that they didn't want to let me in the show, and I tried to tell them I'm in the band, and they're like, "Yeah, of course you are." You know, but I was, like I said, I was really young at the time, and it was a different time for women. But there was a lot of times that I felt looked over, disrespected. But I think gradually, as women are becoming more and more popular in the music industry, and like I said, we're in a different time now. I feel like things have changed a lot. I don't know if it's where I've been in the scene for so long, or because I've worked to get to where I am at this point, to be one of the guys, so to speak. But it's a lot different now. I feel like I'm much more respected in my own right as a vocalist more than anything. I think it's harder for women to be respected in some rights in different crowds because of how we dress or don't dress or lack thereof. I think sometimes people are there just to see what they can see and not to hear what they can hear, if that makes any sense. A lot of people don't take us seriously. I was reading a post earlier today and somebody said, "Well, how do you feel about female fronted bands?" And a lot of people were like, "We don't care what kind of genitalia they have as long as they're good, whatever." And then there was this guy that was like, "Yeah, I don't like female fronted bands simply because women have no idea what they're doing." And I'm like, "Have you listened to some of the female fronted bands today?" Like, I kind of hate that term because it separates us from everybody else. It should just be like, we're metal or we're rock or whatever, but we all know that that's not a thing. Some women use that to their advantage because some people like female fronted metal or rock or whatever more. And then some people feel like it's super negative. I have friends in the industry that when they're called female fronted, they absolutely hate it because it comes with such negativity and derogatory stuff. And I hate that it has to be that way. I'm a person that feels like love is love and metal is metal. It doesn't matter to me if it's female fronted or if it isn't, or if it's deathcore, if it's metalcore or whatever. If you like it, you like it. And I feel like that's how it should be across the board. I feel like everything should be equal for everybody. But that's something that we've been fighting for, not just as women, but as humans for the last 100 years. So I'm not sure that it'll ever be that way, but I'm super happy to be at the forefront fighting for that, for the future of whatever is to come behind me, just as well as, people like Joan Jett and Stevie Nicks and Pat Benatar in the beginning fought for women to be taken seriously in the early times. So it's a mission of mine for people to take not only my band seriously, but how I'm an advocate for tons of female fronted women in the industry, just trying to push forward for people to take it seriously, whether you like it or you don't. At least give us a little bit of respect because we're fighting just as hard, if not harder, to get the same opportunities, to get the same bookings. Um, I've had friends tell me that they've tried to book shows as female fronted artists and they didn't get on the shows. But when they had one of their male counterparts in the band book their shows, they were able to book the same venues and the same opportunities. And to me, it's just it's silly because the same band's going to be playing regardless. And if you like the band to begin with, it shouldn't matter who's in the band or what they look like or who they sleep with at night or whatever the case may be. Like none of that should matter. If you like the music, you should like the music. And I think that's something that people like you and I, especially because you've been pushing really hard for female fronted bands too, and we appreciate that. But you and I are really working to change people's minds. I think it's super important that people have an open mind, especially with music, because there's so much good out there that you could be discovering that you're just pushing aside because it doesn't look how you think it should look. And I don't think that's right.
And you know that I completely agree with that. I do try to push every band that I possibly can and not separate, but at the same time, I also feel like things should be celebrated. There are differences in people as far as how they look or their gender or things like that, and it's a fine line to walk because I do feel like it should be celebrated and at the same time not separated. And how do you do that exactly? So I
Yeah.
try to do all that I can to celebrate and not separate, um, and give everybody a chance to shine. I realized when I was working my radio station that I had blocks set aside for Black artists. I had blocks set aside for cover songs, female artists, you know, but I didn't have anything set aside for males, really. And so I created a subcategory for that too to make sure that if my stuff didn't get saturated with too much of one thing, everybody gets a
Mhm.
turn. And I feel like that's really important. And speaking of everybody getting a turn, have you ever had any have you ever felt like you weren't getting attention because you wear jeans and t-shirts?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people say things about it, either one side or the other. Either people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you for just being who you are." And then other people are like, "You'd probably make it a little further if you tightened your shirt a little," or, just whatever it is that people say. But honestly, like I've gone back and forth, I'm just me. I wear what's comfortable. Sometimes I might be in a cut off shirt and super short shorts. If you go through my photos, you'll find some of that. I for one of our videos, I wore a see-through fishnet shirt with just a bra and super tight jeans with holes. It was just something that I felt comfortable in. A lot of times I like to wear other bands' shirts and baggy jeans or stretchy jeans or whatever. But my thing is like I want to be comfortable doing what I'm doing because it's a long day, it's a long road, and I've learned, especially in my older age, that you want to be comfortable or it's going to show on stage. If you're up there, I used to do like the really tight corsets and like the tight jeans and heels and stuff like that, and it was just so uncomfortable. And to me, I would rather just be myself, and if you don't accept it, then you don't accept it, but you're not part of my agenda anyways. If you don't accept me or my band for who we are or what we look like or what we do as people, then you probably shouldn't be listening to my music. So it's okay. I feel like it kind of cuts a lot of that sexism and misogyny out because people that don't take me seriously, then they're missing out, and that's fine. But there's always going to be those people that are like, oh well, you're a lot hotter when you wear smaller clothes, and that's fine. There are women out there like butcher babies, for instance, like they used to go out completely topless with just duct tape on their nipples, and that's fine. They were such incredible artists that it didn't matter what they wore. And on this side of the tracks, I feel it's the same way. Like I work hard to be an incredible artist and to put out great music. And I feel at the end of the day, people shouldn't care what I'm wearing. So once again, it's one of those fine lines between, people caring and not caring. I think the music should always be at the forefront. So whether I'm a female or whether I wear skimpy clothes or not, I don't think that any of that should matter. And that's the message that I'm trying to get across. It's not that I think that women who wear skimpy clothes are any less than me. That's just who I am. Some of my best friends in the industry do wear skimpy clothes, and sometimes they do get better opportunities because of it, and good for them. That's awesome for them. I support that. If you're comfortable enough to go out there and to wear that sort of thing, I'm all for that. Confidence is key. But for me, confidence comes from just being who I am 100% of the time, take it or leave it. So,
Have you ever found yourself leaning one way or another about a band due to their members? For example, would you find yourself more interested in listening to a female fronted band, a female guitarist, or do you think it matters?
um, it's another one of those things I think is a fine line because, we've seen thousands of male guitarists, for instance, who are just the most incredible ever. Look at Randy Rhoads, Zach Wild, nobody cared that they were men. They just cared that they were phenomenal guitarists. Now, for me, if I see a female guitarist, it's like you said, I'm going to celebrate that because you don't see that very often. You don't see all female bands. You don't see, a lot of female vocalists that can pull off some of the same stylings as some of the people today. So I would say I lean more toward that as trying to go out and find it more because it's something that I do feel needs more recognition. But as far as liking the music more, honestly, I'd say my favorite bands are kind of half and half. I mean, my favorite band is Kitty, and they're all females, but that's because it came to me at a time that I really needed it, and the music really spoke to me. It had nothing to do with them being women, but it did inspire me to want to be a woman in the industry. So I feel like they inspire me a little more because I know the uphill battle that they have to face every day to get to where they're at and to be as big as they are and to do the things that they're doing. So I do celebrate that a lot more. But I don't think it really matters to me. If I hear something on the radio, I'm not going to be able to say, "Oh, they have a female guitarist," because I'm not going to know. It's just going to be me really enjoying it and wanting to hear it nonetheless of what the members are. But obviously, I'm going to celebrate it a little more because I'm a female in the industry fighting the same battles.
I just thought I'd end on that note and make sure that people understand out there. It doesn't matter what you look like. If you can
It
play, you
really
can
doesn't.
play. If you can
Yeah,
play, you can
it really
play. If you can
doesn't.
sing, you can sing. If you rock, you rock. And if you don't, you don't. And that's
Pretty
what really
much.
matters.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I hate it when people are like, "Oh, they suck because they're female. Oh, they suck because they're this or that." It's like if they suck, they just suck. It's because they didn't work hard enough. It's not because they have a female at the helm. I think that people should stop using it as a crutch more than anything or as a divider. I don't go around being like, "Oh, we're a female fronted band, so you have to listen to us, or you don't have to listen to us, or we're only going to do female fronted band shows, or whatever." If you know me, you know that 90% of my friends are guys. My whole band, other than myself, is guys. We play on shows that are 90% guys, and that's okay. Like it's totally okay for me. If anything, it makes me feel a little better because I fit in, you know.
I guess I did want to ask one more thing, and that's if you had any advice to any young women wanting to get into the industry, what would you say to them?
Work harder. Work harder than you've ever worked in your whole life because regardless of what people say or think about you, if you're working hard, you're putting in the same effort, you're putting out just as great of a music as anybody else. It's not going to matter if you're a female or not. It's not going to matter what you wear. It's not going to matter if you wear makeup. It's not going to matter. None of that's going to matter. Just work harder than you've ever worked in your life. Stay true to yourself and don't make decisions based upon what people think you look like because that's going to cut your own throat at the end of the day. Like you don't want to make decisions based on that. You want to just work as hard as you can and take those opportunities. Don't ask for a yes or no answer. Just make yourself seen to a point where people can't deny you. And then the rest is it's all downhill from there because and I say that in the form of, it's an easy ride because after people know who you are and how hard you work, they're not going to care at the end of the day. You're going to be able to fit in as one of the guys. People are going to accept you. They're going to enjoy your music, but you got to work harder. Just work harder no matter what they say. The rest is gravy.
Mindy, thank you for joining me and for having this conversation in celebration of International Women's Month.
Hey, thank you for acknowledging us and for being an ally to women everywhere and to the LGBTQ community, to the Black community, to everybody as a whole, and treating us all as equal and giving us all equal love. I love you for that. You're amazing. And yeah, I just love chatting with you. It's always fun.
Honestly, being a woman in the industry is so much harder, especially in the rock industry. I had no idea. I didn't get into the rock industry until 2015. So just under 10 years ago, but I've been in the music industry. I was in two different corporate bands, doing weddings, running weddings, fronting them as well as the vocalist since 2010. So I've been in the music industry almost 15 years, but not quite the rock industry. And I was treated a little bit differently in both, but I will say that it's harder than I thought. I never realized I was going to get treated differently for no apparent reason. And one of the biggest things, and you might even like laugh at this, and I probably won't be the only person to bring it up, but I would get called a diva for asking for very normal things. I have a lot of dietary restrictions just because of my body, my autoimmune disorders. So I have a lot of dietary restrictions, and I've had people in the industry straight up tell me, "You're fine. You'll be fine." Or they just tell me, "Sorry, there's nothing here for you. And it's like, okay, don't get me wrong. I've been treated very well too. Some people will order me food specifically, and I'm like, that's thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. But yeah, that's one of the things. And uh this is a big one too. And it seems silly, but uh when venues use fog, I can't handle them. Doesn't matter what they're made of. It doesn't matter what their chemical base is. Can't handle them. And especially not cigarette smoke. Oh my God. Like, I'm so grateful that so many states have already banned that. But I will ask venues, like, keep it at a minimum. Please, please, please. I can't, if we're not the headliner, I can't control the headliner. Fine. But like the band's right before us, I got to be at my merch booth. I got to be able to sing through my set. Can we please not have fog? And if you have to have fog, just, please make it minimal. And I get laughed at. I get called a diva. I get called a princess simply because I need my voice to work. I came here for one reason, and it was to sing in my rock band. Yet I have to fight for the ability to stay healthy in these venues. And that's something I honestly did not see coming at all. But yeah, it's one of the things that I also wanted to bring up was, let's see, I was in California once. Well, Elsie Binx has been touring since 2016. So we've crossed the country and come back to Michigan many a time. And I was in California once and having a pretty bad endo flare up. And I asked the bar owner if I could lay down somewhere. And he was like, actually, yeah, like he was super nice and cleared a bench off. Not a bench, a booth, like it was a restaurant/venue. So he cleared off a whole booth for me. And, and then also committed the cardinal sin of asking me if I wanted a Midol. I, s- I don't know. I I saw red and I have no recollection of what I said. I don't remember what I said. And all I know is that a couple of my band members were standing by and they were like, nope. And they walked away. They were like, this is not going to be good. And again, I would never say who this is because he actually felt really bad about it and he came and apologized. He really did not understand what was wrong with that. Because to assume every woman's issues can just be solved with a Midol, like,
And that is a prevalent problem in the world, I feel like. And
yeah,
um, yeah, that's one of the things that some people may not think about is just little microaggressions like that even though they're innocent, it's still, that's the type of thing that can set somebody off. And I don't see how that's any different than if somebody was to bring up my dead mother or something like that. It's a trigger, it's a thing, and why it would be any more accepted for, oh no, you can't say that to him because of this, but it's okay to say that to her because she's just a woman who's being hormonal because she needs a Midol.
right. And so one of the things, and I'm not afraid of TMI. I am a health advocate. I do endometriosis awareness. I do a lot of different awarenesses for autoimmune diseases. So pardon me if you feel a little TMI'd, but I personally don't in general. But I went off on him because like I have an IUD. I don't get periods. And so why would you just assume that that's this woman's problem? Like I was so floored simply because that's what he thought was the answer when my issues are so much farther gone than than a little bit of period cramping. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it seems innocent, but like you don't know who this person is that you're talking to. Now, if it's one of my best friends, yeah, that's fine. But I just met you. I met you 5 minutes ago. I'm laying in your booth in your venue. I met you 5 minutes ago and you're asking me if you need a Midol. Yeah, but microaggression is exactly, I don't use that term often, but that's exactly what that was. And to be honest, that person learned a valuable lesson that day. I am not proud of the fact that I went off on him and I was very upset. Nobody was surprised by this. But at the end of the day, we had a conversation about it. He apologized to me and he'll never make that mistake again. So that particular one, had a decent outcome, you know? And so that's honestly one of the things that is probably the only microaggression. All the rest, like the diva, the princess, whether it's being said to me behind my back or to my face, is ridiculous. And then I think you'll get a kick out of this story because it's always, and you're so cool. So thank you for being so fucking cool. But it's always men. I never have.
It is, of course.
I never there's only a couple times in my brain that I can remember, and it's always microaggressions from women. It's never on the nose. If it's going to happen from a woman, it's micro, and it's I don't like female fronted bands, but I I loved you. And it's like, am I supposed to say thank you? Like that I broke your mold? But the literally last year, at the end of last year, we had a gig, and this venue is really cool. And again, I won't put the venue out there because that would kind of out the person that I would be talking about. But they made these really cool video generators for the screens. And I had sent a couple of my logos to the promoter for posters and blah, blah, blah. And so we get there and I'm watching them on the screens, and the logos are all spelled wrong except for the two that I sent. They're all different logos, and they're like knockoffs of my logos because we have about Elsie Binx has about 1 trillion different, at this point, a bunch of different variations of the same logo, because when you've been around for 9 years, you don't have just one logo anymore. And so I'm like, hey, who do I got to talk to? This, I can't. Our name is spelled wrong. Like, this is ridiculous. And so they point me in the direction of the video guy. And I go to him and I'm like, hey, we have to fix this. I don't know where you got these logos from, but they're all spelled wrong. It's an X, but they all said Binks, like Jar Jar Binks. And he goes, well, I pulled them off your website. And I'm like,
I don't see how that's possible.
this was a Halloween show. So like I had like the stupidest makeup on too. And I'm picturing this conversation like from an outsider's perspective too, because he had to talk to me and I was like dressed in full pleather and like I had big Joker lips on. And I'm like, if you didn't take me seriously as a woman before, you certainly don't now. But I felt I realized about midway through the conversation what I looked like, and I became very self-conscious of the fact that I looked like somewhere between the Matrix and Hellraiser. And I'm like, oh God, trying to have a real conversation with somebody. And he kept telling me, no, I pulled him off your website. And I kept saying, this was like a 60-year-old man, 50, 60-year-old man, maybe. And I kept saying, with all due respect, you did not. I'm sorry, you didn't. I've never had a wrong logo on my website. I'm pointing to them on the computer screen. That doesn't say my band's name. And this went on for probably 10, 15 minutes. And he kept fighting with me. And he goes, okay, is it okay if I take you back to my office computer and I'll show you where I got them from? I'm like, yes, please, please do. And I'm thinking the whole time, would I be treated this way if I were just another dude in the band or the band's manager? Would you have just said, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'll fix it? Or would you have given me 10 to 15 minutes of bullshit about it? And then we go back to his office. He's scrolling through Facebook and magically, he can't find what he took them off of. Not my website. He kept saying your website. Oh, okay, great.
And he's on Facebook.
Now he's on Facebook scrolling through posters and stuff we've been tagged in. He's like, well, I had AI rip logos off posters. And it took all of my patience not to flip out on this man. I'm a little more emotionally balanced than I was 8 years ago. So I was like, respectfully, you could have emailed me. I have about 18 different Elsie Binx logos I could have sent you that are high res, 300 DPI, no problem. What do you need? He's like, well, making excuses. And I'm like, what? Like, would you have treated somebody else a different way? I always am feeling that way.
I can actually vouch for the fact that I've asked you for your logo before to make a thumbnail, and you very happily gave me feedback and gave me the proper things that I was needing.
That's
it was that
true.
easy.
Sometimes it takes me a couple days. If I have a really big workload, it'll take me a few days to get through all my emails, but I always get to it. I'm never the person who's like, no, figure it out. No, I'd rather you have what I would prefer to represent my band.
And if you had, then you would have had to deal with the consequences of that response.
Right. Like, and I've had that happen. I used to have a podcast where we interviewed bands. It was called Motor City Music Society, and we ran it for a year, I think. It was quite a lot of episodes. And I had bands just not respond to me. So guess what? You go on their website and you do try to rip logos and photos, but now you can't come back to me and be upset about it when I've been asking you for 2 weeks for promo photos and promo logos. I You can't be mad at me when I did the best I could, you know? But yeah, I was just appalled. And my band didn't know it happened until after the fact, which is
Mm.
always the goal. I never want everybody to be vibed out at a show. But it word got out about it right before our set. We were in the green room and they're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, it's the stupidest example, but I wish almost that I would have sent one of my male bandmates. What would have happened? But I'm the one who takes care of everything because that's just the role I play. But that was one of the most ridiculous things to ever happen to me, honestly. And that just happened like in October. It was Halloween. So yeah. I don't know if that's a microaggression or not. It's kind of a macro aggression, to be honest.
So I do have just a couple of questions I wanted to ask while we were talking. Have you ever, because speaking just subjectively, you are what most people would consider an attractive woman. And have you ever had to deal with anything positive and or negative because of that?
Absolutely. So for me, this is quite an onion to peel because yes, I identify as femme, but I actually identify as a non-berry. Not, I'm gonna identify as non-berry from now on. That's the new thing. I actually identify as non-binary, but I'm way on the femme side. But there are days where I am totally just I don't want to deal. I don't put any makeup on. I'm like, nope, cover everything. I'm like, I'm good. I'm
And sorry to interrupt
energy.
while you're talking, but I didn't mean
Yeah.
to
No, you're fine.
identify you incorrectly.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm not one of those people who needs to put it out constantly. I also still go by she, her. I'm very feminine, but I have this very complicated relationship with gender. I'm just somewhere on the non-binary spectrum. And I didn't realize that until about 4 years ago. So it's something that I'm still getting used to. And so I'm also on an asexual spectrum. And so for me to be sexualized at all, I'm always very weirded out about it because I don't see myself that way. And I never have. When I'm wearing something that I know is specifically sexier, I think that I have to have a certain wall up because for the most part, I'll say most people are very respectful. I don't feel like I have a whole lot of that problem where like, hey, my eyes are up here. Like, I feel like most of the time people are extremely respectful. And then you get the handful of people that are belligerently drunk and are touching you and are hanging on you like, they're your BFF. You get the people who I love taking selfies with people. And because it makes me happy when somebody wants to take a picture with me. Like it genuinely makes me happy. So if it makes them happy, great, let's go. And so you'll get those men that will slowly and you're cognizant of it and sometimes there's time to call them out on it and like move it, but sometimes the picture's already happening. And so you're like, fuck, if I just let it go, it'll be over. Just do it because the picture's already happening. So if you stop it at this point, you're just prolonging everything. But again, those don't happen often. I would say a few times a year. Like it's really not that much. I will say it happened to me when I was a server and bartender, way more. Like and like just service industry in general. I would walk by a table and get my ass smacked like at a bar. That was way worse. And you have a choice to make. You either play into it, get a bigger tip, or you set the boundary and potentially piss a customer off. It depends on your place of employment, they're either going to stand with you or they're not. So that's a whole thing. And when it's in your own playing field, like being in the music industry, you get to set those boundaries. I am usually the one like I will say like no unwanted touching, please consent. And people really are getting so respectful. I have a lot of faith in humanity, especially after the pandemic. I think people have become way more aware of space, personal space, and um they always ask if they can touch me. Like, is it okay? First of all, is it okay if we can take a picture? Of course. And then, um, sometimes they'll be like, can I, and this goes for women and men. Everybody that comes up to me, they're very respectful. So I don't know, maybe we're just in a really nice pocket of of people because we haven't traveled since the pandemic. We've gone a little bit out Midwest, like over Wisconsin, Indiana. We've done a little Ohio as well, but we've not like big picture traveled again yet. And so I don't know, maybe the Midwest is a little bit more respectful. I genuinely don't know, but I have noticed that I feel way more respected now. And I don't know if it's people being way more cognizant of space. It could be.
I will say that most everyone I've talked to for this has echoed that sentiment that well, not necessarily because of the pandemic, just because, and
Mhm.
I agree with you though that the pandemic has definitely made people more aware of personal space because I'm a Comic-Con goer, so I
Yeah,
spend a lot of
same.
time in lines, and boy, 2018, 2019, you couldn't put a pin between two people. And they would tell you, the people working the lines would say, make a best friend, make a new best friend, and squeeze together so that you could get up,
Yeah.
more people could fit in the line. I understand but
Yeah.
now that's not said anymore because of what we're more used to. But also it's echoed in people just saying that these days people are much more aware of people's feelings around them, regardless of what you see on the internet, which is the complete opposite, it feels like.
Yeah.
Um, Real people, when you're dealing with real people, even if you don't agree about stuff, are usually much more able to respect each other.
Yeah. I have definitely experienced that as well. And I think it could be some version of, being made more aware of it in general on social media. But I do think that the caveat was probably the pandemic. Like I always felt disrespected. We always had people jumping up on stage. And that's not just a female problem. That's an everybody problem. But I feel particularly like, okay, no, no, no. I'm small. I'm 5'2.5", bro. Like I can't fend for myself if somebody drunk is coming at me. I'm going down. Like I can't fight somebody off like that. I might have platforms on and I might look taller, but that doesn't make me stronger. Um, but yeah, I do think because I'm also a Comic-Con goer. I love conventions. I go to the horror ones in Michigan. Would love to make it down to Horror Hound weekend one year in Cincinnati. I'm a huge fan. And so me and my partner Trish only started going back last year because there's a lot of people. That's
Mm-hmm.
a whole
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. And the whole point is to go and take pictures with your celebrities. So you do have to be okay with that to a
Yeah.
certain point. And these celebrities are traveling. Like, so you have to be, get modulated back to that. And yeah, I noticed that it's just not jam-packed. I think a lot of people haven't gone back yet. I think in a couple of years it might just kind of unfortunately revert back. I hope it
It
doesn't.
could.
I'm hopeful that it won't revert back, or at least the respect part won't revert back. But again, Midwesterners are so, oh, sorry, oh, let me squeeze past you. Like all that stuff's real. Like it's all real. Every Midwesterner TikTok and reel that you see about how we talk and it's real. So I could just be a Midwestern thing.
One more thing I wanted to ask you for sure before we go is I just wanted to ask if you had any advice for anybody coming into the music industry that is a female or identifies as a woman or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So something it took me quite a few years to learn is that there's this air in the rock industry specifically that all female fronted people or femme presenting people have to look the same. They all have ass length hair and filler faces and a very specific makeup look and a very specific sound. And I won't call these bands out, but I feel like you probably know there's a good chunk of bands that all sound exactly the same, and all the front people look exactly the same. One might have blonde hair and one might have black hair, but at the end of the day, they all look and sound the same. And it took me a long time to realize I didn't need to be that. I grew out my hair, even though I clearly don't like having hair. Like I grew out my hair. I had really long hair for a long time and I fucking hated it. I loved how it looked on stage. Don't get me wrong. Head banging just isn't the same with no hair. But it took me years. I don't think I really fell into what I wanted to be as a female front person in the rock industry until probably 2018 or 2019. And that's a long time. That's 3 to 4 years of me figuring that shit out on stage. So there's a lot of footage from back then that I'm just not like, I'm like, oh, I didn't look bad, but I wasn't super happy with how I looked and how I was presenting. And so what comes of that for me, telling somebody who might be entering the industry, is just do you. Don't worry about all the other female fronted bands. Just do you. If you want to look like this, look like this. If you don't want to wear fucking makeup, don't wear makeup. Like I like makeup, so I'm going to wear makeup. But if you don't like makeup, don't wear makeup. If you want to dress like Billie Eilish in a rock band, fucking do it. Like do whatever you want. Do not put yourself in a box, because that's all I did. I kept putting myself in a box. And now if I want to wear cat ears on stage, guess what? I just fucking put cat ears on stage. It's not Halloween. I just want to, like, you just do whatever it is you want. Don't worry about these boxes that the industry put on you, especially in rock music. I feel like every other genre is so forgiving, but rock is so gatekeepy. And just do you. Honestly, that's the best advice I could give. Don't waste time being somebody else.
Did you have
That's a
anything
song
else you
right
wanted
there.
to touch on? That is a good song, actually. Did you have anything
Um,
else you wanted to touch on before we call it?
Honestly, it kind of just one tiny baby thing, and it kind of goes exactly with what I said was um the one thing I'd like to make a difference in the rock industry, in general, female fronted bands. It's not a genre. Female fronted band isn't a genre. They're like, we identify as like pop rock grunge, and we're moving try like industrial. Why does female fronted have to be a part of that? It literally doesn't matter. And people like to put shows together. Oh, they're all female fronted. Okay, but the bands don't fit together. What are you talking about? So that's another thing that I'm actively trying to push against. And people fall into it all the time, especially it still happens here in Michigan. It happens all over the world. And every time we get asked about a show, simply because somebody else is female fronted, it's like, they're screamy metal. I'm sure they're great, but that's not, how does that make any sense? So that's something I actively want to fight against. And we obviously need many, many allies to do so. It can't just be us, because, nobody's out here listening to us, apparently. So yeah, that's one thing that I kind of want to leave, which is we need help. We need help with that, genuinely. Stop labeling female fronted bands as a genre. We can be female fronted bands and also pop and rock and grunge and industrial and indie rock, whatever.
I just wanted to end the video by thanking everybody once again that participated. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you got something out of this if you're a viewer. Yeah, thanks again, and happy International Women's Month.